Are we ready?
6:01.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we do have a quorum, and it is February 5th, and we are the Town Manager Acts Review Committee. And Sally will be with us shortly. So in the meantime, since we do have a quorum, and we do have 2 weeks' worth of minutes to approve, why don't we start with the January 15th minutes? Everybody had a chance to read them and review them. Take a motion to approve.
My motion to approve the minutes for the January 15th meeting.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So those are approved, and we'll move along to the January 29th minutes.
I had one edit that I would like to make.
Okay, sure, please. Yep, yes, please.
In the first paragraph where we start going through section 8, there's a quote attributed to me, but where it says, I believe there's uniform, I was discussing the discussion at the prior meeting, and what I had said was there's uniform agreement that we shouldn't have a town residency requirement, but there was discussion of a requirement on a particular distance to town. Like, that wasn't resolved in the last meeting, so I just want to make it clear in the minutes to that effect. So instead of saying or even, I would say, but there was discussion on requirement.
Right.
But other than that, I didn't have anything to add.
I moved to, I can't move to accept those minutes. I wasn't there. Never mind.
Yes, right, so you abstain
I will
from
abstain
voting
from-
on that. Okay, so, given John's,
Should we just change that? I was looking, should it just be instead of or even maybe a requirement? Does that, actually, I don't know if that reads right.
Yeah, I mean,
We
I think
should-
it's all right to
Does it
say,
matter?
but there was
Yeah, 'cause I-
discussion.
Okay.
yeah,
On
I was just trying to
requirement.
characterize our earlier discussions. and-
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because that was mostly me with the, wanting the distance of town. But anyway, so with John's correction,
I move that we accept the January 29th minutes
with the correction.
with John's correction
Okay, great. All in
of his
favor?
statement.
Second?
Okay,
We need a second first?
John
Okay.
seconded.
yep,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, so those are approved. And then just so that we're ready, I think we're on page 13, and we're starting, I think, with J.
Yep.
Right at the top.
There was some things that we were gonna come back to, so maybe we'll start with what I'm sure Sally has a plan.
Yep.
How we're gonna attack.
Yeah, I was curious if, holy cow, this mic is loud. If anyone that wasn't here last week was able to watch and if they had any comments. Anybody?
I was too sick to watch. I felt too sick to watch, but I had a question, actually. Oh, okay. Okay. It was referred to in the minutes about the assistant town manager, and I haven't been able to find much information. I had emailed Sally. I'm sure she just didn't have a chance to get back to me, but I was not sure if it was appropriate to rehash it at this meeting, purely just because I wasn't at attendance, and maybe that was questions that were resolved, but I'm not even sure how their existence is determined. It doesn't seem like it's provided for as a rule of thumb, so is it just at the town manager's discretion whether they want to have one in their particular time in office? Did that come up, and if this is not an appropriate time, I can, talk with Sally perhaps outside the meeting.
I think Sally was gonna ask that, wasn't she?
Yeah, I don't,
About, I did notice it in the contract, that there was a reference to the assistant town manager and whether or not, sorry, I'm distracted by him listening. Whether or not that person would take the place of the town manager when the town manager has resigned or is just out. But it didn't say that, I don't know, it's unclear. It seems unclear.
Okay, because if you just look on here purely, it just seems like it implies that the town manager appoints them. But I just didn't, I didn't see it in any of the documents that we've been tasked with reviewing, and I was wondering if it should be in there somewhere or
Yeah, we
not.
had some discussion about whether, like, I think Mike brought up, is it like viewed as, or should it be viewed as like a vice president, like someone who steps in the shoes automatically, and it's not. And that, we talked a lot about how that position hasn't been the same over time. Like,
Okay.
one person might have had different responsibilities in that role. So I think it is more like how the town manager opts to organize his leadership team, as opposed to something that we would find, it's definitely not something we find in these statutes.
I mean, to me, if they don't have a defined role in, I don't know if hierarchy is the right term, but basically, if they are not intended to have a specific role of taking over the town manager duties, should the town manager no longer be serving, then I personally feel like it seems appropriate to have the town manager have that role in their government or not at their discretion. But I don't know if that's something we need to be discussing or not.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was if they weren't gonna truly be able to take over as acting town manager, then maybe their title would be different.
Right.
They would have, just so that it's clear that this isn't a person that has the qualifications necessarily to step in.
Or the title is wrong.
Right.
That's what
I mean, in
that's
no
what I
other
mean.
department in the town does this happen. If the fire chief is out
Right.
on vacation or whatnot, the deputy is in charge. And
Right.
Same thing with the police. Why is the assistant town manager not the one to step in when something
Right.
happens for one way or another to the present town
Right.
manager?
But if
Right.
that is the intention, then perhaps they should be appointed, or chosen in the same way as the town manager, as opposed to being appointed by the town manager him or
Right.
herself.
Right. So in the contract, in case anybody didn't read it, it says the town manager and the board agree that succession planning for the office of the town manager is an important consideration. It is further agreed that should a vacancy occur in the office of town manager, the Board of Selectmen may wish to consider the incumbent assistant town manager for appointment as temporary and/or permanent town manager. In recognition of this, the parties agree that the town manager will confer with the Board of Selectmen as part of the process through which the town manager appoints a future assistant town manager. So it sounds like the town manager doesn't just get full choice, like they have to confer with the select board on who gets assistant town manager?
Under that contract.
Under that, oh, right, it could be, yeah.
Different this time.
Right, true. Anyway,
Yeah, and that could definitely be something that a future town manager tries to renegotiate, because they can renegotiate that contract, they can negotiate that contract, so
right,
they might have a different idea of what they want for an assistant town manager.
right. Like
And that person has more qualifications maybe than what we've necessarily had in the past,
Yeah,
Or less.
or less,
or less.
right.
Or like I think you had said, assistant to the town manager
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah, I
assistant.
think it was number.
But yeah, more of an assistant too instead of, yeah. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
We do what?
I'll second that.
Second.
Where do we leave out section, like, it was 13, section J?
J.
Yeah.
Darn J,
Section 13J.
page 13.
Oh, HRIJ. Oh, and for anybody that wasn't here, maybe they know, I asked about what, oh boy. Oh, the beginning of section 13. I think that's, you know what, it doesn't matter, never mind, I'm just trying to make conversation. I'm just trying to fill time. Section, in addition to the specific powers and duties provided in this act, the town manager shall have the general powers and duties set forth below. But I don't think that was what I was curious about. It says like, except, I don't remember.
Yeah, there
Was it the
some-
school? There's, the only except part that comes to my mind is the relationship with the school department, the school committee. That's in section C.
Right.
I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I don't know.
Yeah, there was some language that bugged you
Yep.
last time.
But not about the school, it was just a question of like, it said other than things in the act. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay.
So was that what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the select board?
No, it was,
Something
oh,
different,
thank God.
We've been floundering without you.
We haven't,
I actually don't think we've been.
No, I know, I know.
You've done very well.
I'm sure you have.
I think we're certainly treading water.
So where are we? I'm sorry.
So we
No,
do,
it's fine.
so we do have both weeks of minutes approved.
Thank you very
And
much.
I can tell you after the meeting so that you can write it in your notes if you'd like.
It's very helpful. It was difficult putting the minutes together to think of a way that would make sense to somebody reading them. And that's when I decided to just cut and paste the sections right in, showing the changes that were made. I couldn't quite figure out enough to make the, who made each suggestion. I hope that's not a problem, but they're all in there. Thank you very much for doing that, and I'm sorry,
No worries.
I can't believe that I left it out. I just find it. So I was just gonna do a quick roll call. And Mary Beth is out, is sick. But it looks like everybody else is here, huh?
Yes.
I did have some additional handouts. That's when I realized I'd left this folder back at my office. If you could just take one and pass them down. It's just the agenda from our public notice. And the last time we talked about Section 11 of the Town Manager Act, and one of our questions really had to do with what does the contract, what does the Town Manager contract say? So I got a copy. I shouldn't say I got, Ann Freitas, bless her heart, got it for us. Thank you.
Sorry. Shove that here.
So shall we start with Section 11?
Sure.
Yep, so we're on, what, page 13J?
Oh, no, she went section 11.
Oh, what are we doing?
Section 11, I thought, that's the one about the town manager contract. So we skipped it last time,
Yeah, I can't remember why we skipped it.
because we weren't,
Oh, that's
we were
right.
talking about the language that puts in
at the
a
bottom.
automatic severance pay,
Right,
and we weren't sure, does the contract deal with it or not?
and it does.
And it does. And it refers to Section 11. So that made me think that perhaps we don't want to change 11. I talked about maybe eliminating the last clause of the last sentence that talks about paying a 3-month severance. But since that has been folded into the contract, probably we should keep it. It seems to be kind of standard, at least. I don't know how many town manager contracts had that language in it, but the last 2 contracts did have it, apparently. So I think we probably should just keep it in so we're not contradicting.
Does it make sense perhaps, and I'm just talking as a what if here, to make reference to the language that's in the contract rather than have it a firm statement? Because if the contract gets changed and doesn't reflect that exact statement, they'd be a disconnect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it could say, for instance, it could just say, right now, the last sentence says that in the preliminary written resolution, the select board may suspend the town manager from duty, and then goes on to talk about pay. I suppose we could just add, instead at the end, something that says, that the, any termination of the contract would be subject to what's in the contract. But my sense was the contract kind of relied on this section.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought of it the way you had been discussing it at the last meeting. They're relying on the section of the statutory provision, because they have to.
Right.
But if this was no longer here, it would give them the leeway to negotiate the next contract to say, because this contract is, I mean, he's no longer here. We don't
Right.
have a contract with the town manager, so we're not undercutting something that's.
So you're talking to the.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not undercutting something that's in existence anymore. So if it's not in the statute, they're still free to negotiate as a term and maybe add that in, but they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't be bound by that. So I'm not sure that we necessarily want to keep it in the Town Manager Act.
Well, except the contract, the town manager contract refers a couple of times to this section 11, and that this contract basically is subject to section 11. It's not really the other way around.
Right, but if we took it out of the statute, then it wouldn't need to be in the contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, this contract, this is by the boards. We don't have this town manager anymore, this contract doesn't exist anymore. But to the extent the Town Manager Act gets amended, the next time they negotiate a contract, they wouldn't be bound by statute to include the 3-month provision in the contract. I mean, they're bound by the statute. They have to include, that has to be part of, even if it's not in the contract, they're bound by statute to do it currently.
But it's not, unless I'm missing something, Section 11 doesn't talk about 3 months.
It does in the last sentence.
No, that says unpaid balance of the salary due.
Together with the salary.
Together with the salary there of the next, together with the salary of the 3 following the, so we would have to change something, I would think, unless we want to keep the unpaid balance part in there.
Well, this language
Cost to be paid in full.
currently says that if they decide to suspend the town manager, they have to pay the town manager through the day of that suspension, plus 3 months.
Right.
That's what this language
Oh,
means.
okay,
Do you see, does that
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we could just say that with the beginning of the sentence, in the preliminary written resolution, said select board may suspend town manager from duty with pay as provided in a contract. I suppose it's really maybe something to defer. We could propose deleting it,
Yeah.
and then let town council comment on it, bring it to the attention of town council when it gets to that level of review.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
mean-
could see it going either way.
Right.
The select board needs it in there, so they have something they're following.
Yeah.
Or if it's not in there, they can do whatever they want, but maybe it takes away their ability to say, this is all we can do, because this is all the statute allows us.
Yeah.
So removing it could be a problem. Removing the languages in here now could be a problem.
But, you know, yeah, I guess it could be viewed as, this is a limitation on what we can provide. But the way we had talked about it before was,
It was getting in the way.
it's a starting point for negotiation.
Right.
So the selectmen say, okay, you say, I mean, the candidate could say, you say 3 months, I want 6 months.
Mhm.
Like, but maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's the 3 month is all we can do because of this. So, yeah, I think it's probably a good point to bring to the,
At one point, I was going to suggest, maybe we should add that to this section or another section, if this isn't the right one, that that any contract negotiated by the select board with a town manager candidate supersedes what's in this statute. But then I got into the
Yeah, I
same
don't know.
quandary. I don't know if that's good or bad.
It's kind of like saying it doesn't matter what's in there.
yeah, that.
I mean, maybe, because we're just thinking about this issue for the first time, I mean, maybe we should defer 11 a little bit longer to give everybody a chance to kind of think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we table section 11.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I-
Go ahead, John.
Since I wasn't here, I wasn't privy to the discussions. Is, in a nutshell, is Section 11 basically due to the termination, relate to the termination of the town manager, is that correct?
Correct. It kind of sets out the procedure that the
So
select
so
board.
that's the gist of the section, right?
Yes.
I mean, I just, personally, I don't see the connection. I mean, I come in and I come to a job. We work out a contract. That's what I work on, and it might be different than the guy that came before me. But if I'm released, then there's something that whoever is the boss is gonna relate to. But I see the contract as being something that's between that person and whoever happens to hire the person. So I don't necessarily see it fitting into this section. I guess that's the way I feel.
I guess what
that.
surprised me was when I reviewed the town manager contract, it, in a couple of places, refers to this Section 11 of the Town Manager Act. So it's obviously part of the thought process of working on the contract. The contract is subject to the provisions of the Town Manager Act.
And I see that, if I'm thinking correctly, my thinking is that makes sense, because if all of a sudden there's some breach of the contract, now we go to this, because now they're being released from duty or whatever, so now this is going to be enacted because of some sort of breach to this. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking it too simply, but that's the way I see it.
I mean, when you think about it, any employment contract, whether with a municipality or other government entity or out in the public sector, private sector, is going to be subject to certain laws, whether they're mentioned in a contract or not. Minimum wage laws, anti-discrimination laws, workplace safety laws. So you don't need to work them into the employment contract necessarily, because they exist as the backdrop for the employment contract.
And that being said, if I may follow through, if they were to breach any of those things you mentioned, then as far as I see it, they would then refer it to this, Section 11, because now we're talking about termination because they had breached any of those things that you had said. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. I just want to get a clear picture of that.
That's a question. One thing I was thinking about, I don't know the answer to this, is there anything in section 11 does section 11 exist for, due to any connection with the Mass General laws? Is there anything at the state level in terms of employment for town managers? That's the only thing I could think of, is that maybe there's a reason section 11 is there to adhere to state laws or state processes. I'm not sure if.
It is similar to, in 97, when they went over this, that line was already there, except for they added due at the time of such suspension together with the salary. But other than that, it was already in there, that 3 calendar months. So from
So from before 97, it was in there.
before 97, it was in there.
I'm not aware of any statute that deals with the issue, but I can dig a little further. So the fact that it's been even in the prior iteration of this act kind of
Suggests.
suggests that maybe we just leave it in there.
Right, that it's supposed to be in there. Maybe it's just a standard Town Manager Act provision. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll try to do a little more research, and everybody can think a little bit more about what we should do with 11.
Yeah, because I'd be curious what supersedes what. So if someone tried to negotiate better for themselves, but yet in here, we only have 3 months, which supersedes the other?
Well, it's kind of interesting, because the next section, section 12, says the town manager shall receive such compensation as the select board and the town manager shall determine, that, you know, how they, whatever they negotiate. So the act recognizes that the parties will negotiate over stuff like salary and benefits and so on and so forth, but not this. This was,
Right.
baked in, I guess is the way to put it.
Appears to be, yeah.
Appears to be baked in. So,
So we tabled that?
We
Are we
tabled
tabling? Okay. Oh, we didn't actually vote to table it.
Oh, yes.
You asked a question?
that's right, we were in the discussion phase. So we
I
have
made the
a
motion.
motion,
I seconded.
seconded, to table Section 11 to the next meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, everybody?
No,
Thank you. You don't want to table it?
no, I think it's good the way it is. Yeah.
Well, the way it is to eliminate that, the way,
Oh,
is to eliminate that language.
we went,
The draft that I've circulated,
see.
everybody,
Okay.
includes a strikeout. So you'd be in favor of striking out the
The
third day's
I'll be in
relief?
favor of the motion, yes. I misunderstood that, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us back to section 13. J. But I wanted to point out one thing. 13A, which is on page 9. It says that the town manager shall supervise and direct the administration of all departments, commissions, boards, and offices, except the select board, school committee, board of appeals, and maybe we should add zoning board of appeals to make it clear what board we're talking about. And the trustees of the library. So I know, Mike, I think you were the one who raised the point, well, geez, nowhere in there, in this Town Manager Act does it refer to the police chief or the fire chief. Well, that would be within that language. I just wanted to point that out, it was a thought that I had. It would include any department that the town manager determines is necessary for the town. So town manager has the power to rearrange departments, to fold them together, to split them into more. I mean, the town manager's job is to manage and to decide how best to do that. Which comes to the question, Fawn, that you raised to me in an email about the assistant town manager.
And I brought that up very briefly before you came in, just asking if it was appropriate to rehash it all, discussion that had happened at the meeting that I missed. So I appreciate that you're bringing it up as well.
Would you like to talk about it some more? I was going to give you just a little bit of insight, which is that the assistant town manager, or whatever you call that position, is a position as determined by the town manager with functions and roles as the town manager assigns. So a town manager could bring in an assistant with the thought they're going to, maybe mentor them or encourage them to do the educational stuff they need to do to become a town manager, and to, kind of partner along so that person is ready to step in if the town manager, drops dead. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
An assistant town manager, somebody said at our last meeting, maybe it should be called assistant to the town manager or some such. But the role and the function is going to be as defined by the town manager.
Would it be fair to take that one step further, that role may not even exist?
Yes.
Because it would exist only at the discretion of the town manager?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So we had stopped last time at 13.
J.
I, so we're on J now.
And we did all the other sections of 13? I
Yes.
couldn't remember. Okay, great.
So, does everybody have it in front of them? I'm not talking ahead of anybody, am I? With a couple of edits that I just fiddled with as I was pulling this together, I've changed it to say, said town manager shall administer either directly or through persons appointed by him, her, them, in accordance with this act. I propose capitalizing it. All provisions of general and special laws applicable to said town, which I'd capitalize, all bylaws and regulations established by the select board. Does anybody have other ideas of, in addition to the markups that are in the draft, the working copy, I'm calling it, that I gave everybody, I'm just suggesting capitalizing the word act and capitalizing the word town. So is there any discussion? Anybody have any thoughts on this section?
This feels like a very obvious section, but that's all. I mean, it's fine as it is, but it feels like, well, yeah, that's exactly what they should be doing.
Motion to accept that section?
Second.
Thank you, guys. No seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Again, the couple of edits that I'd suggested are, said town manager shall have authority to prosecute, defend, and compromise all litigation to which the town is a party. I'd suggest capitalizing town. And to employ special counsel to assist town council whenever, in the judgment of said town manager, it may be necessary. And I've suggested adding the sentence, the town manager shall keep the select board informed regarding any such litigation. I think it's presumed, and I think functionally that is what happens, but to try to quell any concerns people have, I thought it just wise to stick it in there.
Well, and it keeps with what we've already been doing,
Right.
you know.
Previous.
I just have a question about the word choice of compromise. I mean, in the context of the sentence, it seems to imply negotiate, come to a compromise. Is that
Yes.
a meaningful word choice that on a different level that I may not be aware of in the legal world?
It's not an unusual use of the word, but it does mean that the town manager would have the right to compromise a claim that's brought, or to prosecute it, if it's something that the town is prosecuting or moving forward with, or to defend it if it's something that's filed against the town, or to compromise.
Okay.
So,
Is that essentially the same thing as settle, or is compromise different than settle? Because I have the same thought.
Right.
I didn't know if compromise and settle are different from a legal
not,
perspective.
not in any way that I mean, I
Okay.
think of them as the same in the context of litigation,
Yeah.
but I'm not a litigator, so I could be wrong, but that's how I read it anyway.
If it's not a problematic word, I have no problem with it being there, but I just felt like
Do you mean you're willing to compromise?
Likewise, I was just more curious, so I'm fine with it.
Motion to accept section K?
second. I beat you there.
I'll just have to be quicker next time.
You better.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then 13L, said town manager shall perform such other duties consistent with the office as may be required by the bylaws or vote of, I'm suggesting town meeting, or by vote of said select board. Though it occurs to me there's another type of vote that can be taken in a town.
Yeah, so maybe town is the better.
Yeah,
It
It
could be
could-
a town-wide vote on
it could be
something.
in a lot of places in the documents we've looked at, that's referred to as a ballot. Ballot question is one that the town, overall, all voters of the town. So maybe just leaving it at town is sufficient.
And it still says Board of Selectmen, so.
Yes, thank you, I just crossed that out.
What does, what did we say that the capitalized town referred to? Does that refer directly to town meeting?
No,
Or
it
to
refers to
town-
the town of Danvers.
Okay, but so do we need to differentiate between town and town meeting voting? Does it matter?
Well, we were just saying that,
Yeah, no,
that a vote of the town implies both, because a vote of the town is
It
either
does.
by ballot
okay,
or by the town meeting.
okay. So it does refer to both,
I would think so.
okay.
I mean, we could add more language to clarify if anybody thought it was necessary.
But then I feel like there's, in past things we would have to
Go back to.
go back to and add, right?
Because I think we've used I think we've used town with this kind of connotation somewhere else. I can't exactly remember
Yeah.
where, but I think we've used it as like either or.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with just using town
Town.
here.
If you find another section where we handle things, we could always, I want to everybody to know that there always can come back and raise an issue, even if you felt, oh, we already voted on it, I can't ask about it. Of course we can, we're a working committee, and if you find that something we've done contradicts something from before, or is similar to what we've done before, feel free to bring it up.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept L with the minor changes that you made.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that brings us to section 14.
I do have one, since we just brought it up, I will ask. Section 7, which got back to that whole, how much money do they have to play with? What's their petty cash? It does say, in any year the sum of $10,000 or such larger sum as may be appropriate for the purpose by the town. And so that refers to just town meeting, I would assume.
Yes, that would.
That would be
only
a town meeting thing.
That would be a town meeting issue, that's true.
Well,
Not something that would be a ballot.
Could there be something,
Right,
but
so
could there
that's-
be something that is required to be approved by vote of the town? I don't know if, I'm trying to think of the types of things that do require that. Like if we had some kind of a override or something, that has to go to the town, and some appropriation that's linked to that,
Oh, I don't know.
maybe? I don't know.
I mean,
Dan, were
maybe.
you gonna say?
I
I
don't know.
was gonna say the potential override example, and also that at a town meeting, we've moved on from that act, I don't recall the numbers, but that the town meeting vote can be challenged, and anything town meeting votes for could be forced onto the ballot, and that keeping it vague as the town would kind of cover those things that seem super unlikely, but it would be covered.
Good point. Do you want to delve into that
No.
more, Noah?
No,
I'm glad you found that, thank you.
no, I do not.
Section 14, the town manager may, without notice, cause the affairs of any division or department under his or their control, or the conduct of any officer or employee thereof, to be examined. Said town manager shall have access to all town books and papers for information necessary for the proper performance of his or their duties. One of the functions of town manager is to know what's going on in all the different departments, and to be able to look into something if town manager believes there's a problem. So that's what I assume the purpose of this section is. Before I'd often suggested in previous sections that we have some notice provision from town manager to the select board. I don't think we need to do that here, because this is investigative only, this section.
Yeah.
I move to accept section 14 with the edits that Sally made.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Section 15. The town manager shall appoint a planning board to consist of 5 members who shall serve for staggered 3-year terms. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of the planning board, the vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. The members of the planning board appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties and shall possess all of the powers and duties of planning boards established in accordance with Section 81A of Chapter 41 of the general laws. Before entering on the duties of their office, planning board members shall be sworn to faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace. And to be consistent with what I've suggested all along, to capitalize town clerk.
So I brought this up in a previous meeting, and I think maybe it was Dan, I don't remember, but brought up that maybe in state law that that the planning board does need to be appointed and cannot be elected?
I
What
said
was-
that about the zoning board.
Oh, that was about the zoning board with the town clerk? Okay. So should any of these be elected positions?
Well, that's certainly an idea that, you know, when in our earlier meetings and people came and shared their ideas, some people did suggest that. Shall I tell you what I think about that idea?
Yes, please.
And again, it's just my thought, just the fact that I'm saying it. Please disagree as you see fit, but if one person is appointing members of the planning board, and it's a person who knows what they're doing, which I would assume any town manager would, you want to spread out the areas of expertise among the members of the planning board. So maybe there's going to be somebody who's really great, maybe even an architect, but really great at reading plans. Another who might be really great at looking at maps that show lot lines and that kind of stuff. And maybe somebody else is really good at understanding deep knowledge of building code and stuff like that. So a town manager, in my view, is able to select members, people to be on the planning board to the best benefit of the town, to bring the best people to that spot. With an election, people are motivated by different reasons to run for an office. And it could be you get 3 people that have expertise in the same areas that are elected. Or you could have somebody that's running because they don't like something the planning board did the last year. So it's like running against something as opposed to running for this board that does a lot for the town. I mean, it's a pretty significant function they serve. So I guess I lean towards that town manager appointment, looking at it as almost, not so much professionalizing the work, but being able to distribute it and pull the best people for what's needed at this moment on the board. But this section does say that all 5 members, are appointed by the town manager.
I just sort of wanted to echo what you said, and I guess I look at this board as one that you would want to prevent from being politicized, which I think if you open it up to being an elected board, there's the possibility that it becomes more politicized and less about sort of carrying out the duties in the best interest of the town. Because, and I think that, as we talked about having the zoning board be elected, there's sort of that, there's that strike sort of a balance there. So I sort of agree with sort of leaving this as appointed and all 5 members being appointed.
My question would be more so going back to, which I guess we did discuss, how much power the town manager has, or does the town manager make these appointments, say, along with the select board instead of just by himself? Just throwing it out there. Just to take some of it off of just one person's responsible.
One thing I didn't realize about the planning board was that it requires people of different skill sets. And that, by one person recognizing that different types of things are needed on the board, then that makes some sense. That makes a lot of sense as far as making sure that the people on there know really what they're doing and come at anything from different angles. So I think that's important.
So one thing, though, John, you just said that the planning board is required to have people of different, that's really not true, but for it to work effectively, it's better if you can have a range of expertise there, and that's what I think the town manager can do. And I'm concerned about bringing the select board in on that process, because the select board members are elected. And we need to have elected officials in town. That has to be part of the process. But it could give an appearance of favoritism or cronyism. Do you know what I mean? If an elected official is the one that is,
So maybe maybe select board wouldn't be the right choice then, but somebody else maybe then who's, maybe the assistant town manager, or maybe someone else.
Building.
Yeah, somebody,
Yeah.
maybe the building inspector, maybe somebody else within town hall then, as opposed to an elected just so that it's not all on one person, I think. I don't know, it's just something I'm curious
That
about.
one person is responsible for all the other people that you just described. And
Yeah.
if he's got the resources or needs the resources of asking for an opinion from somebody else, I would hope that he did it. And didn't just assume the responsibility himself, even though he was blinded to some degree.
And I think too, again, the town manager has purview of the entire town and the best interest of the town, whereas the building inspector has a more narrow purview, or the assistant town manager, I think it makes sense because they are the one managing the town and can sort of balance, to your point, balance all of those different factors. I guess I wouldn't want to take that, I wouldn't want it to be in anyone else's hands.
I'm trying to envision, excuse me, what would happen with a vacancy on a planning board that was partially appointed, partially elected, for example. So if there were a vacancy and it was an appointed member of the board versus an elected member of the board, if it was appointed, I think it would fall within what's already in section 15. The manager would be able to appoint somebody else. But if it was an elected member, how would that work? Because, would it mean that potentially the planning board would have one less member until the next election? And how would that impact their ability to?
No, I think it would be like the rest of the boards and commissions where they get together, like the library, whatever, you get together, you mutually agree on somebody that rides out the rest of that term, and then, or the rest of until the next election, and then, someone runs again. So
Okay.
it would work the same way as the rest of them.
Okay.
Also, ideally, there's alternates on the planning board. So
Right,
they
they
would
would step
fill
up
in.
to.
I don't know if there are currently, but there might be one alternate, right? I'm not sure. But I think normally there's two alternates.
I thought too.
Can I ask a question, just sort of as a newer member of town, is there a particular concern that the planning board is not functioning effectively in this current model? I guess what we try to, is there a problem that we're,
Yes. I mean, I don't know that I see, I have heard that people think that there is a problem.
I don't want to get too in the weeds, but what are the specifics of the problem? Because I think that's sort of what's the problem that we would potentially be solving by changing the structure?
I think there's a concern among some residents that there is overdevelopment and that the planning board lets through more development than they would like. And the thought is that the town manager was in agreement with that, overbuilding, and so appointed people to the planning board that were in agreement with them about how much development gets done. I'm just putting out what I,
that's the
I'm not
impression.
saying,
I have that impression too, that
Right.
people feel that way.
Yes.
I disagree with them,
as
but,
do I.
but here's something that I've heard as well, that the planning board, people can appeal. If there are very, very few appeals, is what I've been told. I don't have numbers, I don't have anything to point to, I don't have any statistics, but that it's unusually successful, the planning board is, in avoiding doing something that is later challenged in court. Because in some cities and towns, planning boards will make decisions and then they're sued and the thing gets overturned and, back and forth. But that's not the case here.
And-
So,
Yeah, and there's not a ton, they don't get to make wide-ranging decisions. The
Right.
planning board doesn't get to, they're following our zoning laws, basically.
Right,
so-
so I guess that's what I'm getting at, I don't, if they're following our zoning laws, and again, to get back to what we've discussed before, it's not that there's still, at the end of the day, there's still an accountability to the select board that's elected that appoints the town manager, and if the select board doesn't agree with the town manager's decisions, they have an avenue there. I guess it seems like it seems drastic to change the structure of a board that is functioning effectively because some folks disagree with particular decisions they've made. I don't know, it just, but that helps them just, it seems like if that's the specific problem, this might be a bit drastic measure, but I'll listen to other opinions.
I believe, and again, I'm not 100% sure about this, this is based on a lot of the emails that we received much earlier in the process, and what I recall people saying when they attended, but I think some of the people who had suggested having some be appointed and some be elected, they just felt in general that an elected position represented the will of the people of the town more clearly, and I think that that was sort of a general item that was missing, an aspect of the board, several of the boards actually, that were missing.
In regards to the voice of the people, 2023, the annual town election drew a 13% turnout. The annual town elections the following year drew an 18% turnout. Presidential primary drew a 30% turnout. The November presidential election drew a 50% turnout. So when you put to the voters, is it really the vote of the people? It's just the people who get to the ballot box.
And it is frustrating when you see a problem or something you don't agree with, and you think, okay, well, what can I do about it? And so you think the zoning bylaw is voted by town meeting. So you, okay, I'll go become a town meeting member. And at our meeting just Monday night, boy, those zoning bylaws were passed fast, weren't they? It was really nice, by the way, to see so many familiar faces at the meeting and to hear voices. I'm like, I know that voice. But it's like trying to sew with boxing gloves on. It's a very remote process to go from my thought and what I think is right or wrong, and how do I make that come into action. And it's hard. It's a hard part, I think, in any size city or town or country or state. But it takes a long time to figure out, how do I get this one thing done? And I can understand the frustration people would have.
Sally, kind of going off your point about town meeting, with this paragraph, I mean, I think it's really important that zoning is responsive to what the people want and what the voters want, but kind of going off what was said, I really do think that would be a drastic shift here, and that isn't necessarily the paragraph for that accountability. With the zoning, as you mentioned, town meeting has to approve sometimes by 2/3 all zoning. That's where the accountability is. Or the select board who sets policy for the town, they're elected, that's where the responsibility is. I don't think it's this paragraph that is what will make zoning more responsive. And that actually goes back to the appointment question as well. Town manager would never pick somebody in defiance of the select board, because you don't get your boss mad at you, or at least you try not to. And so that is, even if it's just the town manager appointing it, there is
An inherent accountability.
yeah, oversight. And so if we've heard of issues with zoning, or as was mentioned, some people in town feel that way, I mean, I think that there's avenues for that, but that is with our, elected officials as they stand, not necessarily with changing that board. But that is important, just not this paragraph.
And there's also the availability of going to planning board meetings, and I know that people say that they're not heard, or it doesn't matter what they say, but there's that, and then there's events that the town has where it's like, everyone is invited to talk about zoning and redistrict, or, changing what, I think they just had one, was it about Liberty Tree Mall? Or Pine Street? Oh, was it Pine Street? Okay, because I know they've also talked about Liberty Tree Mall and whether or not, what would be a good idea there. So there are places to get your views across also.
Well, I was just thinking at the town meeting the other night, there was a proposed zoning bylaw on lighting. There was fairly strong opposition to it. It was tabled, it was sent back to the planning board. So I think there are avenues to affect change, to Dan's point on the zoning board, and I'd almost argue that if, this just doesn't seem the avenue to affect change. It seems like if the issue people, it sounds like the issue people have is with these zoning bylaws, which the planning board is basically working off of. So I don't know if, it seems like shuffling the planning board doesn't really address the issue. And again, like I said, it just seems like a drastic change. And I err on the side of status quo and these sorts of things.
Oh.
Anybody else?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
to accept section 16, I'm sorry.
15.
15, I'm sorry, 15. I didn't turn my, section 15.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Natalie, are you not voting in favor?
Yeah, no, I am. I'm just, again, I kind of looked at this opportunity as being something there where maybe, especially where we have a new town manager coming in who doesn't know the town, potentially could be living out of state. I am just want to be on record as saying I am reluctant to have a town manager have as much power as we're giving a town manager. So that's just, so I will vote yes to go along with the mass, but, well, because it doesn't make any difference what I say. But I did want to go on the record to say that I thought this was going to be our opportunity to perhaps take away a little bit of the, complete power. But
And-
that's just my opinion.
It's important, and what you say does make a difference.
Oh, thank you.
And I think this is our opportunity if as a committee, we decide that it should be taken away. I think this would be the,
Right, well,
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
these would be
Yeah.
the sections right here.
Right,
I'm
right.
not saying take away like major, but it's things like this, I think, especially I do have some reservations, with a new town manager coming in where we don't have a residency. They could live in New Hampshire, they could live in Connecticut and decide that they're gonna make the trek, and I find it difficult to thinking that someone's gonna be able to choose people, having no clue potentially if they do live out of state, I
Right.
don't know. I just thought this would be the opportunity to maybe take away a little bit of that, total power.
I think I can understand, you describe it perfectly. I wonder if it helps to think about this. A new town manager coming in doesn't mean that existing boards are gone. Because current members of the
Right.
planning
Oh, no.
board will remain till the
Right.
end of whatever their term is. So
Right.
it would be a gradual process of replacing people. When I was on the finance committee, I forget what the terms were supposed to be, and they were supposed to, you could be renewed. But kind of once I was on, I think only once or twice did anybody ever say, well, I think your term has come to an end. So it's like, sometimes the committees are right on top of those dates, and sometimes they're not. So I don't think it's gonna be a massive changeover, or that there'll be
Right.
hundreds of spots that the town manager has to fill. I think the town
Right.
manager will be presented with, a pretty full
But
complement.
but maybe conversely, maybe there should be some that should be changed, and now they won't know to do that, because they're not gonna know the history, or they're not gonna know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is what it is, section 16.
Section 16, pursuant to this act and to Chapter 111 of the general laws, the town manager shall appoint a board of health to consist of 3 suitably qualified persons who shall serve for staggered 3-year terms. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of the board of health, such vacancy shall be filled forthwith by the town manager for the unexpired term. The members of the board of health appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties, and shall possess all of the powers and rights, and shall be subject to all of the duties and liabilities conferred or imposed by law upon boards of health of towns. But in the performance of their duties, they shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of their office, members of said board of health shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or a justice of the peace. And the couple of minor little changes I made through this just were capitalizing. Any discussion, any thoughts? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept with Sally's edits.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Section 17. The town manager shall appoint a municipal light board to consist of 3 suitably qualified persons to serve for staggered 3-year terms. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of the municipal light board, the vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. The members of the municipal light board shall be, the members of the municipal light board appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties and shall possess all the powers and rights and shall be subject to all of the duties and liabilities conferred or imposed by law upon municipal light boards. But in the performance of their duties, they shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of their office, members of the municipal light board shall be sworn to faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or a justice of the peace. One thing that I thought was interesting, the cadence of it, the language in these 2 sections kind of follow each other a lot, that the town manager appoints and that they will organize, these boards will organize and do their work as they're supposed to, so that it's recognized that they operate, they do their job, but it's under the supervision, the general supervision of the town manager. Yes.
One thing that I noticed as we were going through is that the prior section that we were just discussing on the planning board doesn't have that last piece on the supervision of the town manager. And I kind of.
It does, actually. It does, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
On the top of page 15, about the 5th line down. they
no,
shall
I'm
be-
sorry, I'm talking about section 15.
Oh, 15.
The one on
The planning
the
board.
one we did two sections ago, sorry. And, you know, it has like the same sort of cadence, as you said, but then it doesn't have that piece about, but in the performance of the duties, they shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager.
It's
I wonder if
interesting.
that's because it cites the general laws.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, because maybe there's, you know, other statutory requirements for them. But yeah, it was just interesting that all these boards, I presume, all these appointed boards, I presume, are subject to the direction, you know, of the town manager, but that one didn't have it in there.
Do you think we should propose adding it?
I don't know, because, like Noah said, it might be because you got that statutory citation. I don't want to trip over something that,
I would err on the side of not adding that, just thinking about how the planning board holds public hearings. And if you're under the supervision of the town manager, could he tell you to vote yes? Could he tell you to vote no? Like, under the supervision, whereas the municipal light board doesn't hold like legal public hearings on things, public meetings, but not public hearings with a vote on kind of something that meets that standard of a public hearing. I'm unsure if the Board of Health has public hearings, so I don't know about that paragraph, but the municipal light board really is more directing internally supervising the town department, whereas the planning board is making those like legal decisions and legal votes. That was kind of how I saw it as different.
Section 81A is general law, planning board establishment, membership, tenure, and vacancies. You're probably right, that's probably why it's not more specifically listed.
Right. I am just curious, as a general question, with the municipal light board, is that board overseeing the electric company? Or like, is that, I don't really know.
I think they set rates.
Oh, the light board sets
I
rates.
think they
Okay.
do. And yes, they supervise or oversee the electric light department.
Okay, but so the electric company, which is generally what it's called, right? The electric, the Danvers,
Danvers Electric.
Right. Right, but I think they consider, because it's a separate entity, like the money doesn't flow through the town. It goes directly to
It's
the,
actually part of the town budget. What's different about it is that there's a lot of federal regulation involved with energy.
Mhm.
And so it's the only department in town that operates on a calendar year versus everything else is on a fiscal year. Beginning July 1 for everybody else, but beginning January 1 for them. So it was always hard looking at their budget and trying to fit it into the same puzzle. And there's a lot of regulation that defines what they have to use money for. You have to have certain funds for certain purposes, and
right.
Yeah,
it's much more complex, but
And the income does, while it's a town entity, the income doesn't flow into, like,
No.
you can't take money from the electric ratepayers and use it towards the school or something like that.
Right, it doesn't
It's
actually
very-
go through the full budget. It stays with the electric company, I
yeah,
think.
that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just actually curious as to what, if the light board was the board for the electric company, and why it's called the municipal light board. But it's just a historic name for it.
Well, it is, but you know,
It's separate, isn't it?
separate,
Well, it's, right, so it's isn't it a separate, it's a separate board entity from the electric department itself though,
I
right?
don't know, I guess I just always thought it was the same. I thought they,
Yeah,
because it's Danvers Electric, Peabody has its own, and they call it Peabody Light Plant.
Peabody Municipal
Light,
Light, yeah.
Peabody Municipal Light.
Mhm.
And most of the other cities and towns around us don't have a municipal light, municipal electric. So people in those communities contract mostly with National Grid for their electricity. But I just thought that the municipal light board was part of Danvers Electric.
Right.
I guess I didn't see Danvers Electric as being so separate. But I could ask, I could find out more about it. We could defer this one till later if you'd like.
I'd like to, just
Okay.
because I'm curious if we change the name of, or, I don't know, if it's more clear, because obviously we don't know.
And Sally, I think we had received some input from, I am not recalling if it was the former selectman at that meeting, about how this was a big issue in the 90s, the last time it was changed. And so I would definitely hesitate to change any part of that, if that was sort of one of the reasons that they had reviewed the charter last time, focusing on that section and making it clear that the town manager was in charge of the electric division. I know that that was kind of the issue, was that they wanted to be crystal clear that he was their boss. Yeah, I would be really hesitant to try to change any part of that.
So we would need a vote if we're going to defer. And if we defer, I could try to ask questions. Anybody here could ask questions, but I'll follow up on it as well to see what's the history here.
I'll make a motion to defer.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion?
Can I just read this and see if it clarifies anything at all? I'm not confident that it will, but this is it's from the Danvers website about the municipal light board and how it relates to the electric department. People may know this already. The Danvers Municipal Light Board provides a forum for Danvers residential and business customers and the Danvers Electric Division regarding bills or any other matters relating to the electric division. The Municipal Light Board advises the town manager and/or the Director of Public Works on matters pertaining to the electric division. I don't know if that changes our need to table it or not, but just found
Yeah,
it.
I think that clarifies a bit your question about,
does.
is it separate and distinct? It's like an
Right.
oversight kind of
Right.
thing, and that advises the town manager and
Could we
provides
not call
service
it
to the
the
town.
municipal electric board? Just to clarify that it is in relation to the electric company? Does it matter? I mean, I just think, just the renaming, I don't know if that is a bigger thing to do than just renaming it, but it feels not, like it could be related, but we didn't know it was related, so to put it in that it is the municipal electric board would be in direct line with electric company.
It's not an electric company. It's
Oh,
a
electric-
department, it's a department of the town of Danvers.
Okay, so,
Is your question changing light to electric?
Yes.
Because light feels very
yes,
archaic.
correct.
Okay.
It just feels like
Yeah.
we should just change the thing to electric.
It
Yeah.
feels, yeah.
Yeah,
I just have a sneaking suspicion that, like many other things, there's more to this name change than perhaps we can be aware of, and it may create other issues. For example, if Danvers Electric has a board as part of its normal running, and then there's the Danvers Electric Board and the Municipal Electric Board, and will that create any problems?
Confusion.
I mean, it's certainly a question we can ask. Because I agree, Municipal Light Board is not necessarily full of clarity.
good.
Which is kind of ironic.
It is. Maybe we can illuminate,
There's no
somewhat.
light, yeah. There's no
shed some light on it.
Shed some light on that. Good one.
So we've had a motion to defer and a second. Is there further discussion? Would you like to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
This is to defer?
To
Yeah.
defer.
Okay.
To
1,
table
2,
it,
3,
whatever.
4, 5, 6, 7.
I don't think we need to defer.
So we'll say 7 voted yes. Okay. Great, so we'll skip to 18. Pursuant to Section 24 of Chapter 41 of the general laws, the town manager shall appoint a principal assessor and 2 other assessors who shall serve for staggered 3-year terms. The principal assessor shall devote full time and attention to the duties of the office of principal assessor and shall be the chairperson of the Board of Assessors. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of said board, such vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. Said principal assessor and assessors appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties and shall possess all of the powers and rights and shall be subject to all of the duties and liabilities conferred or imposed by law upon assessors of towns, but in the performance of their duties, they shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of the town manager. Before entering upon the duties of their office, assessors shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace. And again, my little touches were capitalization. Go ahead, John.
If I could make a suggestion, kind of similar to the wording in these other, or the approach of these other sections, where it says the town manager shall appoint a principal assessor, what I would suggest is to insert there, the town manager shall appoint a board of assessors to consist of a principal assessor and 2 other assessors. Because that's really what this is about, is like setting up the board, because there's reference to a board of assessors later on. So just like to set it up that way.
So shall appoint a board,
Consisting
A board of assessors to consist of, and then the rest of it as is.
anything else?
Yeah, with the 3 assessors, my understanding was the relationship between the principal assessor and the board is the principal assessor is a full-time town employee and the other members are members of a board. And so kind of keeping it clear that the principal assessor is appointed not separately from the board, but sort of in its own phrase is because that is a specific job that's distinct from the other 2 who have staggered 3-year terms. That the principal assessor is a full-time employee whose term, the staggered 3-year terms only applies to the other 2, not to the principal assessor.
I agree with that distinction. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Right, but they're all members of the board. Like, that's what I'm getting at, is that, because if you look at it, it says the town manager shall appoint a principal assessor and 2 other assessors who shall, so maybe it does need a little,
So the principal assessor technically isn't appointed,
No, you need the mic.
they're hired, right?
yeah, but everyone who works for the town is hired by the town manager.
I've had that same issue in the past, and just give, I think it's like legally, or legalese, appoint means, because I've written in a few places hire
Yeah.
and not appoint,
Yeah.
but it means the same thing. It
But
doesn't feel like it,
But I do agree with you, like, when you get to principal assessor shall devote full time and attention, that indicates that they're a full-time employee, but appoint to me has a different connotation, so I would agree with you. Or, so maybe if it's an appointed principal assessor, it should be a town employee or something, but I had to read this a couple of times to,
yeah,
Get
there's
that
been,
distinction.
there's been
Yeah.
past ones that I'm like, appoint, you mean hire? Like, because it even says the select board appoints the town manager, and I'm like, do they appoint them? But I mean, I guess they do, but yeah, they have.
And with the word appoint, as a public school teacher, I get an appointment letter
Oh,
every year.
okay.
So even a teacher is appointed,
Appointed.
even though that's not in any way what you would kind of think of that.
Right, right,
Interesting.
yeah.
I like John's change, just for consistency with the other sections. And I don't think it reduces the clarity of the rest of this section and how the Board of Assessors works.
Can I just say it's odd, I find it odd that the principal assessor does not appoint the 2 other assessors, if the principal assessor is an employee. That's all. Seems odd to me. That like an employee.
A lot of things are odd that we're finding.
Yeah, that like the principal assessor, who is a town employee, is gonna have 2 other people that are then appointed. I don't know, it seems strange, but, okay, it's fine.
I assume that the other 2 are in an advisory type of role. I mean, the assessor is there every day doing the work.
Right,
And then for matters that need to come before the board, you've got these 2 advisors.
yeah,
And the person that's hired to be the assessor might not
you would, yeah,
have the, pardon me?
you might wanna keep them separate,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know if that's what you meant.
Mhm.
I move to accept section 18 with John Almeida's modification.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I would vote no to keep it as was.
Thank you. Section 19. The town manager shall appoint a suitably qualified person to the office of town clerk. Said town clerk shall have the powers, perform all the duties, and be subject to all of the liabilities and penalties now or hereafter conferred or imposed by law upon town clerks. Said town clerk shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager in the performance of said duties. Said town clerk shall serve as ex officio, or shall serve ex officio as clerk of the select board. Before entering upon the duties of office, the town clerk shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the chairperson of the select board or a justice of the peace. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept section 19 as written with the minor changes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
How about you, John?
Oh, sorry,
Thank you. I'm just trying to be accurate. The town manager shall, or this is section 20, town manager shall appoint a suitably qualified person to the office, wait, we just did that, didn't we?
No,
Oh,
treasurer.
sorry, town clerk, this is town treasurer. Said town treasurer shall have all the powers, perform all of the duties, and be subject to all of the liabilities and penalties now or hereafter conferred or imposed by law upon town treasurers, provided, however, that in the conduct of said office, the town treasurer shall be subject to the supervision and direction of said town manager. Whenever it shall be necessary to execute any deed conveying land or any instrument required to effect any vote of the town, the same may be executed by said town treasurer on behalf of the town unless the town shall vote otherwise. Before entering upon the duties of said office, said town treasurer shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by said town clerk or justice of the peace. Any discussion?
Do we now have a combined treasurer-collector?
Sometimes we do. It hasn't always been the case. But the town manager would have the ability pursuant to this act to merge positions as, if they thought that would make the operations of the town work better.
So at the current point in time, they're separate.
Is it on the organization chart?
It's on the
Michelle?
oak chart as treasurer-collector.
And then there's accounting under all of the finance director.
Right. I don't know the answer to that, John. Mike, I'm sorry, I can find out.
If it's the case that we did merge it and they currently are merged, then I would propose that we consider merging section 21 into section 20 and eliminate 21.
Agreed.
I'd be careful, because I think some of these things.
John, you need to.
I'm sorry. I'd be careful doing that, because I think some of these things are probably prescribed by other statutory provisions, and if we start like saying, oh, we don't need to articulate both of them, we might find ourselves crosswise with some other thing. And the other piece of it is, just because they're merged in one position today doesn't mean that the next town manager might want to do it differently in the future. So I don't know that we should take what we're doing today as it's got to be that way forever, you know? So I would caution messing with these too much.
Well, do we want the treasurer and collector to be separate? I mean, maybe we want them to be combined for whoever comes out. I mean, is there a reason why they should be, other than if there's a statute?
Yeah.
Is there any other reason why we would want two separate individuals performing these duties? I don't really.
Perhaps the job is too big for one person to do well?
Or as technology changes, a job that used to take two people could possibly become one.
Right.
But then technology can change and responsibilities can change and maybe a decision be about, it actually was better if we had two. I mean, the town manager is the chief financial officer for the town. And I guess, to me, I would defer to the town manager to decide, should it be a single person in both positions or should it be two different? There are times in the past, I know one time when it was the same person, and it made perfect sense because of the scope of the work and how much was involved. Things have gotten so much crazier and busier. I mean, there are different functions when you think about it. The treasurer keeps track of all the money that's coming in, right? And the collector is collecting taxes, which is only one part of the whole money picture for the town. So as we get more units of housing in town, or more business in town, the tax collector's job might grow. But on the other hand, technology might make it just easier. You just send out an email and you get, it's not as labor intensive. But I guess my inclination would be to keep them as separate because the functions are so different, and leave it to the town manager as to whether they should be merged or separated.
I would defer to keep them separate. I do think the technology question is an interesting one, though, because when this was written in 1997, the technology is very different, probably not as many online payments as there are now, not as much. So I do wonder if that is a factor in that technology has reduced the number of hours required for tax collection, but as you said, that could change, or the scope of the town could change, or the scope of the rule. I mean, I'm fine with it, although it'd be interesting to know why it's combined now as opposed to in the past. I don't know how long it's been combined for. I do think technology is probably the answer, though. I'm just thinking of, I can pay my excise tax online. It's,
Yeah.
I know that there are a couple of differences, you know, the first municipal job in most cities and towns was a town clerk. And then over time, things changed, and the treasurer is also kind of ever-present, going way back in time, within a town. And so the treasurer, as they point out in section 20, is the one that signs the deed. If the town owns property that's being sold, it's the treasurer that has to sign a deed. Just that one function alone is unique to the treasurer.
So-
I'm just sort of tossing it out there, I don't know how it impacts the argument or the discussion, but.
So they used to be elected before 97. So I don't know if that, both of them, both the treasurer and tax collector. And so then they changed it to appointed in 97. So,
I would defer to keeping them separate, and there's always the option of combining, but I don't know if we'd want to close the door to them being separate.
well, I mean, I'm in agreement that like, we can keep it separate, but as we've said, that if it was listed as both a treasurer / or whatever and collector, then the town manager does have the opportunity to separate them, like they have with every other board or position. So I think it goes either way. Like if we eliminated one, they could split it. If we keep the same, they can put them together. I don't know if it matters.
I would always, if we're that ambivalent about it, and I agree with your assessment, I would vote to leave it the same.
So to me, it sounds like the question at the moment is, do we want to defer this to get more information, or do we want to go ahead and vote on section 21 now?
I'm good with voting on 20 and 21.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've already voted on 20. Nope, I've got that
Voted on
backwards.
19, yeah.
Yeah, we voted on, so we voted, so 20 is the one we're in front of. It's in front of us.
I would move to accept section 20 with.
I need you to talk into
Oh,
the
I'm
microphone.
I would move to accept section 20 with the edits that Sally made to it.
I'll second.
Okay. I'll get 21.
You got it, we'll trade.
Any further
Really passionate about
discussion?
treasure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we're to 21, which is the tax collector. And I can read that real quick. The town manager shall appoint a suitably qualified person to the office of collector of taxes. The collector of taxes shall have the powers, perform all of the duties, and be subject to all of the liabilities and penalties now or hereafter conferred or imposed by law upon collectors of taxes, provided, however, that in the performance of such duties, said collector of taxes shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of said office, said collector of taxes shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace.
I make a motion, we accept 21 as written with the minor changes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so 22. So in 22, I merged two positions because it was just easier than doing them separately, but we certainly could. It's to appoint suitably qualified persons to the offices of town accountant and finance director. The town accountant and said finance director shall have the powers, perform all the duties, and be subject to all the liabilities and penalties now or hereafter conferred or imposed by law upon town accountants and finance directors respectively, provided, however, that in the performance of such duties, said town accountant and said finance director shall be subject to the general supervision and director of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of said office, said town accountant and said finance director shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace. So, town accountant, there might be statutory provisions for town accountants. In Mass General Laws, probably Chapter 41. I don't know about finance director. So, one question is, you know, before the town accountant was appointed by the select board, and we changed that. And so I wanted to put the accountant in somewhere. And the finance director is not, I don't think, wasn't named before, but it is a position now, because Town Manager Steve Bartha thought it important to create that position. So again, anybody new coming in could decide to kind of reshuffle the titles and responsibilities and how best to get the work done. But this refers to two positions that are currently in the town. We could make them each a separate section if you would prefer that. I was mostly putting them in here to remind us to talk about them. Any discussion? Yes, John?
With the finance director being a newly created, just under the town manager's authority to organize the town and positions, if the town manager has that authority, sort of a freestanding ability to create that, do we need to add it in? I mean, the town accountant, I understand, because that was already in the statute, and we're cleaning up the way that appointment happens. But do we need to add finance director where that's not anywhere in the statute, and it was created by the town manager, and a subsequent town manager could decide not to have a finance director? So I just question, is it something we need to add into this section, or into the document at all?
I'll tell you the reason I proposed putting it in is because on the organizational chart, there's several positions that are underneath that position on the chart. And it seems such a significant position, I wanted to recognize it here. But any of these positions that we set out, unless they're required by law to be in place, like a town clerk, the town manager can decide to rearrange things. So that is true. You could decide to come in and say, no, I don't like this concept. I'd rather have, I don't know, the assessor be the top of the finance chain of people. But not by the person, but by the title. So it's true. Maybe that's why they should be in a single one, or maybe that warrants having them to be two separate. I don't know the answer to that. Kind of toss that out for you guys to discuss.
And I guess one thought is I don't know if this is what you're getting at, is sort of, if it's in the statute, that almost requires that the position must be there, but what if it's written as the town manager may appoint, so that it becomes they have the authority to, but it's not required? Because I sort of see both your points, like, do we want this to be a required statutory position, but also, it is an existing position, so we might want continuity. So I don't know if maybe the language changes.
Well, we could have a section that says the town manager shall appoint a town accountant, and then another section, the town manager may appoint a finance director. Maybe that's the answer.
But then we go back to the past two sections where they don't have to appoint two separate ones, but there's two there that both say shall. So then that also suggests that they will, but they don't have to.
Can someone
So-
just, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Can someone just remind me, I know we all agree that the town manager has the ability to combine any of these positions or sort of shift the hierarchy of control to a certain degree. But where is that in here that it specifically gives the town manager that control? Because it does say that they shall appoint. They shall appoint. So if we agree that that means that appointing all of these positions where it says that is statutory, how does the town manager then actually have that flexibility to change the structure? I just don't remember.
I think it might be 13A.
So they'll supervise and direct the administration of all departments.
And then the next part, section B, the town manager, in accordance with the provisions of
Okay,
this
thank
act.
you.
Can reorganize, consolidate, abolish, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the language of shall
Doesn't
is not as concerning.
mean anything, I guess. I mean, it doesn't mean you
It's
shall.
not binding.
Right, it's not
Correct.
binding, right, it's not binding.
Okay.
Sally,
Which means all
just
of
looking
this.
at the organizational chart again,
Which means this whole thing.
the finance, under the finance director comes accounting, assessing, purchasing, town clerk, treasurer, and collector. if we didn't do a finance director, how would that be reallocated in any way?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I thought it best to include finance director in the act, because that's such a significant position just on the organizational chart. Though, again, the town manager could decide, you know what, I think I'm gonna call this position, I'm just trying to think of another name that could be used.
Fiscal overseer.
Right, that's a good one, thank you.
No problem. I got more than that.
So that, you know, despite the language in the act, one thing that was clearly, that's clearly understood and has been in operation since this act was passed, is that the town manager can rearrange things.
Who was the finance director before one got appointed?
There
we
wasn't a
know?
finance director.
So, but who did all of this? Do we have any idea? Was it just the town manager?
It might have just been the town manager.
Yeah. And it just became too much for, like, the town manager to do all of it and said,
Well, I don't know for sure, I
Yeah.
don't know that function, but the team, the team that was the tax collector, the accountant, the treasurer, all those kinds of jobs, the assessor, the accountant, had been here for many years, and they operated in a certain way, I think just because they'd all worked together for so many years. And then as those people retired, as they aged out, there was a need to kind of rearrange the department and have this one focal person that you know, everybody below reports up to. That's what I would guess from what I observed out very far outside of town hall, that there was just a need to have kind of a centralized process with consistency throughout all of the positions, because it was mostly, you know, new people coming in. And maybe in a few years, the town manager may say, you know what, I don't really need that separate person anymore. Plus, a lot of the responsibilities changed. Requirements for accounting, audit requirements, funding coming from different sources, grant money, state, federal, different reporting requirements for each type of grant that comes in. The job, I think, has gotten really complex in the last several years, so that could be another reason for it. So I could speculate, but I'm not a finance person, I don't know.
Well, and it's a good thing we do, because that's who our acting town manager is now, so it's a good
Right.
thing we have a
Yes.
finance director.
yes.
So that suggests the organizational chart was created, you know, sort of from a chicken or the egg perspective. It was created to represent what we have, not necessarily created to historically
fill.
represent
Mhm.
what the town was designed to have.
I would expect in, you know, maybe not immediately when a new town manager comes in, but not long after, maybe within a year after, that chart could change. It's always changing, just like it is in any big organization, any place that if you've worked, it kind of shifts and changes. What are the different titles, jobs, duties, responsibilities? So,
Would it make sense in any way for Section 22 to keep your addition of the finance director in this section, but to say, in the first sentence, qualified persons to the offices of town accountant and/or finance director? Given that we know the town manager has the flexibility to change this all anyway, but it keeps the title of the position of finance director in the document where it wasn't there previously.
I wouldn't do that, because then the suggestion might be that you could not have a town accountant, and I think we do need to have a town accountant.
No, it's just the and/or would be on the finance director.
Well,
Yeah.
it does
Town
imply,
accountant and/or finance director. So
Oh,
you could say, or,
Right.
instead of a town
Right,
accountant,
right,
we'll
right.
have but I think town accountant is one of those offices that we probably need to have. Like, for
But is
other
it-
reasons,
but
not
isn't
just,
it technically still at the discretion
I
of
don't-
the town manager?
well, I don't know about that. Like, I think we probably do need to have a town accountant.
I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just
Yeah.
saying if we look purely at our understanding of the ability that the town manager has to design the structure of, for example, just the finance department, do we agree that it's not actually required?
No,
But there's
I
provision
wouldn't,
for it, but it's not
I
required.
wouldn't concede that, I don't know, but just because there's so many different, like, I would view that as akin to like the tax collector, or some of these things that a town needs to have.
By statute,
Like
statute are
statute.
required to have, by
Okay.
So I
by
don't think
state
the
law.
town, I don't think the town manager could say, I'm doing away with the town accountant, we're not gonna have that, I don't think
So it
you
is
could-
actually
I
required
think
by
it
statute.
probably is, yeah.
I like the idea of separating it, and it can be shall appoint for the town accountant and may appoint for a finance director.
I would say I like that paragraph as only having the town accountant instead of the finance director. I see the finance director as the town manager just delegating part of his job. In a sort of similar way, I know that it was mentioned that a lot of people report to the finance director on this chart, that's true. The town manager, the former town manager, also merged and created the director of land use and community services, merged a whole bunch of departments under him, including the Board of Health, that has its own section and such. But that was just really delegating his authority. It's not necessarily a job that every town has. Back with the accountant, someone needs to be a town accountant. That has to be set in a law, whereas not every city or town has someone finance director. I just think that's just under the responsibilities of the town manager. So I kind of see one of those as being a legally defined job, and one of them as assistant to the town manager, kind of doing part of his work.
One thing, I can understand the points, Dan, but the implication of saying it's just part of what the town, he's delegating one of his own jobs, or her, the town manager, just delegating part of their own jobs to somebody else. And I kind of take issue with that way of saying it, because a town manager could decide that the best way to get the finance part of town properly operating is to have a director who's up at the top. So it's not delegating part of the town manager's responsibilities, it's a way for the town manager to more adequately meet his or her responsibilities. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I'm not, maybe not phrased perfectly correct. I don't think I'm in opposition to that. It's definitely to accomplish the job. But I mean it's similar to like health is on here, and it says that the Board of Health reports directly to him, but it really reports to the health director. He's the one that goes to all their meetings. The town manager does not attend every one of those meetings. So that is him delegating part of his job to someone who is an expert in that area. But health director doesn't have a section because it's part of the town manager's overall responsibility, just defined as his responsibility.
I kind of like the idea of the or, because if I look down the things that at this point come under finance director, they all have to happen. I mean, there's none of them that you would say that, well, we could push that aside. So they will happen. It's just a matter of whether the town manager decides to have someone oversee those things. So that possibility that someone might is a good idea. So I would, be open to that possibility.
I think there's concern about the shall in the first sentences of these appointment things, but one way of reading it, and I think this is the way that it plays out, is that it's, you shall appoint suitably qualified persons, like that's the requirement. But I don't know that because the town manager has the authority to, run the town as he or she sees fit, really, some of these things may be appointed like in different ways, or, putting aside like the ones that we think have to happen. But if you look at the wording of it, it's about appointing qualified people to these jobs, as opposed to, I imagine it's about a concern about cronyism or something like that. Like you have to have qualified people here. And maybe that's what we should be looking at the shall as doing in these sentences, as opposed to you gotta fill these things, because as we've noted, the town manager could merge positions or could, do different things with them.
The only one that doesn't work with, I will point out that for the planning board, it does not say suitably qualified persons. Not that that makes a big difference, but that is not, shall doesn't work in that point for that one.
Well, maybe, maybe the best way to go is to have it be two separate sections. To have it first be section 22, it's town accountant section, and then have a section 23 that's finance director, and instead of say shall, say may. Maybe that is the best way to address all the different types of concerns that have come up.
Is, would this be similar to the assistant town manager then? I don't remember if there was, like, if we've discussed that there doesn't have to be an assistant town manager, or they have different duties, would this be that? Is there a, I don't remember if there's a section that says that the town manager shall appoint an assistant town manager.
I don't think that there is.
So then do we not do the finance director, like was said, right, where we just.
I'm leaning more towards that right now, just sharing a feeling. Just in the interest of discussion, I'm leaning more towards
Just getting
that.
rid of.
Not,
Have one, which we do, it should be in, it should be,
I mean, are you suggesting that we should do that for assistant town
Right.
manager? Like, there's a lot of things in the hierarchy that we don't have in the Town Manager Act. Like, there's that org chart that we don't have in here, and I don't think we want to go through and start adding them all in. I certainly don't want to do that.
no, but the major ones are in.
Well,
I mean, I think it does beg the question why the ones that are in are in and why some of them are not. I mean, besides the obvious of they're required by statute, we know that our town needs them to run. But assistant town manager, for example, why is that not in there? And I wonder if that's an important question that might help shed some light on these other questions that we're posing as to whether or not we should include them in here or not. I think it goes back to some of our other discussions. If the broader we leave it, the better in some ways, and then the more specific we make it, the better. I mean, it comes back to that argument, I think, too. Do we hobble ourselves as a town? Do we hobble the town manager in any way by making it too specific or not specific enough? But I do wonder why some of these things are absent.
Well, so another possibility would be for this section to only deal with town accountant. Because the real intent, the reason I thought we should add a section here is because the act, when we first looked at it, said that the town accountant is appointed by the select board. So now we have to put in here instead, we took that out, so we have to put aware that who's responsible for that now. So maybe it's enough to just say the town manager shall appoint a suitably qualified person to the office of town accountant, period. And because that's like an optional, operational position that a town manager has the right to say, I want somebody sitting next to me that is an expert in these finance things.
So who would the chief fiscal officer of the town be? What position is that?
That's the town manager.
Well, shall be, okay. Sorry.
So again, coming back to maybe the best thing is to just have section 22 refer only to town accountant and pull finance director out.
That makes sense to me.
I agree with that.
Yeah, yep.
So let me just read what it would say if we pulled it out. Town manager shall appoint a suitably qualified person to the office of town accountant, period. Said town accountant shall have the powers, perform all the duties, and be subject to all of the liabilities and penalties now or hereafter conferred or imposed by law upon town accountants, respectively, or taking out respectively too. Provided, however, that in the performance of such duties, said town accountant shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of said office, said town accountant shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or a justice of the peace. Maybe that's just the best way to do it.
I'll make a motion, we accept section 22 as modified.
Second.
So Natalie, you moved. Fawn seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So, section 23, the town manager shall appoint the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners to consist of 3 suitably qualified persons to serve for staggered 3-year terms. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of said board, such vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. Said Water and Sewer Commissioners appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties and shall possess all of the powers and rights and shall be subject to all of the duties and liabilities conferred or imposed upon Water and Sewer Commissioners by Chapter 229 of the Special Acts of 1916, Chapter 91 of the Act of 1874. But in the performance of their duties, the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of their office, said Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners shall be sworn to the faithful performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept section 23 with Sally's edits.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Section 24. The town manager shall appoint a board of commissioners of trust funds to consist of 3 suitably qualified persons to serve for staggered 3-year terms. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of said board of commissioners of trust funds, such vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. The members of said board of commissioners of trust funds appointed hereunder shall organize for the proper conduct of their duties and shall possess all of the powers and rights and be subject to all of the duties and liabilities conferred or imposed by section 45 of chapter 41 of the general laws or any other applicable provisions imposed upon boards of commissioners of trust funds of towns. But in the performance of their duties, said board of commissioners of trust funds shall be subject to the general supervision and direction of said town manager. Before entering upon the duties of their office, said board shall be sworn to the faithful performance of their duties by the town clerk or justice of the peace. Now, a lot of people say, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I have.
I didn't
That's
even
my
know we had.
question.
Yeah,
Yep,
I didn't
mine
even know
too.
we had that.
Yep.
Yes, we do. I can't tell you all the ins and outs of it because I don't know. But it's similar to the library. Library is set up by funds and a trust. And there's still language in place, procedures in place that were based on maintaining or taking care of that trust, making sure it complies with its original intent, with the original intent of the person who donated. There are various funds that the town has and has gotten over time that are trust funds. Some could be bequests, I suppose, from estates. Another, I don't know if this is still the case, but remember when the state hospital was first developed and there were conditions to the developer who took over the project, and one was funds coming to the town. I don't know if those funds are still held in a trust or if they're now managed by the Amherst Affordable Housing Trust. But there are funds that are held in trust, and so somebody oversees, some commission oversees, the interest in that the funds are properly handled and that they're expended or used as per whatever trust created the fund. I wish I had more specifics than that, but I don't.
Well, I make a
So
motion.
there is currently a board of 3.
I believe so.
Okay.
We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It's a
I
big
know,
secret.
nobody has.
Yeah, in terms of it under the radar, it is interesting. I went back in several years of the annual town report the town meeting members get, and yeah, it's not in there. Every other board or commission is listed, and that is not listed. So I would kind of be interested to know who those 3 are. We, in the historic preservation, the ad hoc study committee last year, we kind of ran out of time as we got to this, but we thought some of those trust funds could be used for potentially historic preservation projects. And it seemed like there were some that, in theory, probably could be. But we did never actually find out who those people were to
Well,
talk with.
One option for us tonight is we could defer this, and I could try to get more information.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I mean, they should probably still be, but, yeah, I'd like to just sort of know.
I'll make a motion, we table section 24.
We need to know who they are, at least.
Yeah, exactly, before we say that they should be there.
So
We can
Natalie has
invite them
moved
to
to
the
table.
meetings.
Is there a second?
That would be good.
I'll second.
Thanks.
If you're watching,
Please.
please come to the next meeting.
Please tell us, what do you do?
I don't see it on the website under boards and commissions. for
Really?
what it's worth.
This should maybe be under the finance director.
Do you see it
Should
in
it
the
not
list?
be?
Is that what you just said? I didn't
I
hear.
don't
No,
see
it's
it.
not
It
in the
doesn't.
list,
No,
yeah.
I was looking through the website, and I couldn't find anything, any references to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a motion by Natalie to table section 24, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. So I think that's where we'll end it.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we're getting there.
We are, wow.
We're doing a heck of a job. Just a thought I wanted to share. Remember when we were dealing with the recall election provision? And I said that I thought it should be in this act, that we maybe should retitle from Town Manager Act to the Town of Danvers Governance or something. And the place that I thought we might want to insert the recall election provision is after what's now numbered section 34. Just kind of stick it at the end. Though we also have to add a provision about how often this act should be reviewed. For the Town Meeting Act, we chose 20 years. We might want to consider more often or more frequently or less far away for this act, just because so much of it seems to be changing.
Right.
So I just wanted to plant those 2 seeds. Hopefully we'll get back to them next time. I have our next meeting as being February 19th at the Senior Center. And after that, the next meeting is March 5th back here. And Peter Zook, who some of you may remember, is planning to attend that meeting with us. I talked with him on the phone. He wants to come. So, former member of the Select Board, I believe, and many other functions in town as well. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
I thought we did that 2 hours ago.
Well, yeah, you did. I don't think we voted officially, though.
So Natalie
substitute
moved,
teacher.
I second.
Vaughn seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you.